Hello everyone. I'm going to work today on how to make a summer practice routine. I'm going to walk you through a couple of things that I would do, including the 4 categories that I think are important for you to follow, including sound, scales and arpeggios, technique, and music. First of all, let's start with sound. Sound means working on your intonation, your tone quality, and long tones are the way that we do that. So I'm going to pull up on the screen here saxophone long tones from our collection of summer practice routines, and I've got my tonal energy tuner up here. It's going to accompany us, if you can see that right there. I'm going to just play along long tones, and each note is a fermata. And as I play, I'm going to be trying to listen for my tone quality, and I'm going to be listening for intonation. I'm going to make sure that I'm in tune and it sounds good. Here we go. Each note I play, I'm trying to hold it real steady. I'm trying to get the note, make sure it's in tune, decide in my head that I think I like the way it sounds, and then the goal is to hold it as steady as you can for as long as you can until it starts to feel uncomfortable. Notice that my low G was a little bit sharp, and so I had to do some significant lip bending to get it down. This is a good opportunity for you to practice that stuff, and it's something you should be learning how to do. And everybody's mouth is a little bit different, but usually changing your airstream, adjusting your embouchure is going to create some different kind of tonal structure and change the intonation just a little bit. Another thing you can do with long tones is put a drone on, and if you put one pitch on and play along with it, I'll move this a little closer to the camera so you can hear what it sounds like. And so I'll have this in my headphones, and I'm listening to it and trying to match that pitch. I'm trying to do my best to use that drone to help me understand where I'm supposed to be playing, and then use my ears instead of just trusting the tuner. Long tones can be done and should be done in the full range of your instrument, so you should be playing a long tone on and all the way up to the highest note you can play. After you work on long tones, the next thing you should be doing is working on scales. And scales can be done in a number of different ways. You can play your scales just in quarter notes. Or as written on this exercise, in quarters and eighths. Or you could be working on them in 16th notes. You could work on articulation. That was slur 2, tongue 2. Here could be like tongue 2, slur 2. You should do that in all 12 keys. Once you can do it in all 12 keys, the next thing you should be doing is doing it in the full range of your instrument. So for example, if I played that last scale that was my G major scale, it's important to note that that first note I started on, G, is not the lowest note I can play in that scale. And the highest note, G, is not the highest note I can play in that scale. So if I play up the scale to the highest note on the paper, and then keep going, thinking of the letter names of that scale until I get to the highest note my instrument has, which in this instrument, the only keys I have would be for a high E natural. So I'm going to do that. Go up to the high E natural, then back down through the scale to the lowest G, and then keep going through that G all the way to the lowest note I can play in this key, which is a B natural, then back up to G, and that would sound like this. And if I were to really be working on my scales, eventually you want to pick one of those scales a week and focus on it and do just that, the full range that you can play. Whatever the highest note you can play and the lowest note you can play is in that key, and you repeat that. And then you put your metronome on, and then it doesn't matter what kind of note you play, quarter notes, eighth notes, or 16th notes, just put on a metronome and focus on playing in a tempo that's comfortable for you. I think I can do that in eighth notes. 1, 2, 3. And clearly I need to spend some time working on my articulation on those lowest notes. So that might be something I focus on. And so I would maybe work on that. Maybe I'd work on just the upper notes, like those palm key notes are tricky. I might focus on that. And I'll do that until, I feel like I've really mastered that. And then you don't need to feel like you need to speed it all up right then. You just live with that for a while and do it again the next day and do it again the next day. You shouldn't be pushing yourself to practice something that's harder than you're able to do. So that's a way to practice scales, and you can make up your own way. You could put on different kinds of beats to practice with than just a metronome, but that's how I would get started with that. Okay, the next element of the practicing is technique. So you've got long tones, you've got scales and arpeggios, and you've got technique. And so technique, in my opinion, would be like taking those scales and breaking those patterns up into something different and working on the little mechanisms that your fingers need or your hands need to be able to play whatever music comes your way. And so one that I'm choosing is the Clark Study Scale exercise. And the Clark Study is something I remember hearing back from music school that many different instruments play it. And it's good because it takes a major scale, the first like 5 notes, and then the few below the tonic, and it makes its own technique exercise out of that. And it sounds like this. And it would be important for you to practice, not just go through the whole page, because if I gave you this to read, you'd probably be freaked out that that's a lot of notes you have to learn. And so I don't expect you to do that. But if you notice, it's the same 3 measures that repeat over and over again, just in different keys. So right there, I went through the first like 5 or so, and I got to D flat for me, my D flat, and that one was a little bit problematic. So what I'll do is I'm going to break that down. And if you're supposed to spend time on technique, it's important that you don't just try to read it and go on. The goal of technique is to build muscle memory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the first 5 notes of that pattern. That's D flat, E flat, F, and D flat, and E flat. I think I got those first 5, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in a rotation loop and just keep looping that like maybe for, I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds. I've got that one, so I'm going to start on the note I left off on and go to the next 5 notes. E flat up to F. I'm just experimenting with some different fingering combinations, whether I should use the fork, but probably not because I'm going back to the E flat. So in my head, I just was taking a second and figuring that out. Okay, I think I got those 5. So I'm going to try to put the first 9 together like this. Now, I didn't really take my time and go through every single one just yet, but I feel like out of those 3 measures in that exercise, the first 3 groups of 5 notes, the ones that I practice the most, are pretty automatic now. By memorizing them, it helps me to get my muscle memory in check too. So you just got to do that slow repetition of one small set of notes over and over again until you get it, and don't try to do the next thing until you go on. And because I stumbled on D flat today, I would probably spend the rest of my 10-minute technique practice on just D flat. There's no reason to play the whole thing. I'm only practicing for a half hour today, so I'm just going to pick a small section and master it. And so if my goal is to make sure that that one measure of 12 notes, 13 notes is perfect, then at least I have a goal that's an attainable goal, and that's all I'm going to do today. It's just those 13 notes. Okay? So I'm going to keep shedding that, and then I'll be ready to move on to the next thing. And the last element of your practice routine should be working on something that's musical. I actually think that after I've been practicing for 20 minutes now, that my instrument is actually finally warmed up. Not just like, is it physically warm and sounding good and my reed is making good sounds, but now like my brain is warmed up, in the right zone for concentrating on the music. And I think if I were to do that warm-up that I did for much longer than 20 minutes, I might get burnt out. But if I were to not have spent that much time playing my instrument, I wouldn't sound good when I'm about to play, the music that I'm supposed to be playing and working on, maybe the thing that I'm excited about playing. For many of you, the stuff you'll be practicing over the summer will be marching band music, but for some of you, you'll be working on sight reading. You should be working on sight reading. You might be working on pieces for your private lessons. You might be working on stuff that interests you. Whatever it is that you're working on, don't go straight to it. Make sure you do your warm-up routine. And then when you do work on music, this is a good chance for you to put everything to good use. Maybe if I find out that there's something in this music today that doesn't go real well, I might circle that and try to find something in my technique exercises tomorrow that will help me prepare for that. I can work on maybe a fast run if I can find it in the Clark studies or in something else, or make it part of my scale that I'm practicing. But it's important that you go through the whole process and don't just jump in to the music, right away. Okay? So I've just picked literally week 1, number 1 in the summer packet. And so I'm going to treat my music reading as sight reading. And my goal when I'm playing this is to play with dynamics and good tone quality and observe dynamics. I said that twice now, so it's important. Breath marks, articulation, and of course try to play the right notes and rhythms. But so I'm going to use my opportunity, my practice time, to work on some sight reading. So here we go. And that's it for now. I know that maybe planning on practicing all summer, go do fun things, but practicing can be very fun too. And what's fun about it is maybe not the actual work, but the process leads to great results. And if you want to be good when you're done with this, you got to put in that work and the effort now. Nothing that's worth it is really ever easy. And so this is worth it. I promise you. Put the work in, and you're going to see great results. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.